Thousands of Americans have taken to the streets in protest after the Supreme Court's ruling overturning the constitutional right to abortion, reversing its own landmark decision nearly 50 years ago.
We won't go back! We won't go back! We won't go back! We won't go back! Democracy looks like this is what democracy looks like. Abortion, safe and legal. Abortion, safe and legal.
Nearly half of the states will effectively ban all or most abortions, and there are fears other constitutional rights, such as same-sex marriage, could be targeted next. Dr. Michelle Goodwin is a law professor at the University of California, Irvine. Dr. Goodwin, why do you think that this has happened now, after 50 or so years of the Supreme Court upholding Roe versus Wade?
It's an excellent question to think about why now, nearly 50 years after Roe v. Wade, that the United States Supreme Court has dismantled it. And I think much can be said about the current composition of the court. While many people have said that this is a matter of Republican versus Democrat, I'd actually remind them that in 1973, Roe v. Wade was a 7-2 decision. 5 of those 7 justices were Republican appointed. Justice Blackmun, who wrote the opinion, was actually nominated to the court by Richard Nixon, certainly no Democrat and certainly no liberal. So what we see is a version of extremism that goes far beyond the origins of what we understood the Republican Party to be. The Supreme Court now is comprised of an ultra orthodox right-wing court that is beyond just Republican and Democrat, that was aided by a president who is now being investigated for attempting a coup against our government.
So does what we've seen here with Roe versus Wade, plus what you've said about the Supreme Court, raise questions about other rights in the United States?
Well, it does, and even that comes from the justices themselves, even though Justice Alito, who penned this opinion, says that there are guardrails that will protect other rights, such as right to contraception, the right to interracial marriage, this right to same-sex marriage. In the same opinion, in a concurrence by Justice Thomas, who signed on with the majority, he says not so quick. For him, he would revisit the precedents in contraceptive access, such as Griswold v. Connecticut. He would revisit Obergefell, the case that legitimized same-sex marriage. Interestingly enough, he does not go so far to say that he would toss under the bus interracial marriage, but this, I think, also exposes the hypocrisy of the court and the justices themselves, because Justice Thomas is in an interracial marriage. So it's worth noting that all of the other areas of privacy he attacks in this opinion, but leaves out the one that is actually intimate to his life and privacy.
Why does this decision affect women in some states but not others?
Well, what this decision does is it doesn't outright bar abortion in the United States, but it does say that states that wish to ban abortion may do so, such as the court is saying there is no fundamental right to an abortion, such that they would uphold the precedent, not only in Roe v. Wade, but all of the precedents that were before, such as Skinner v. Oklahoma 30 years before Roe v. Wade, where the Supreme Court used the language of human rights and civil rights to describe one's individual autonomy and reproductive freedom. But what is made after this decision is that there will be some states that are free states, such as California, where I'm tuning in from, New York, Illinois, Colorado, and then other states that are already well practiced in denying freedoms, such as Mississippi, Louisiana, Texas. It's worth noting that the states that have been most vociferous and most prolific in their anti-abortion, anti-reproductive health rights and justice legislating are ones that have a keen and familiar history with Jim Crow and also American slavery.
So what happens now?
This is a very good question. Happening now certainly will be that people who live in states where abortions will no longer be accessible will have to go to states in order to get that reproductive health care. Let's remember that the United States is the deadliest place in the developed world for a person to be pregnant. Now, this won't be as difficult, still inhumane and undignified for a woman of means, but it will mean that for women who are poor, this is going to be grave consequences ahead. They must, in fact, try to take time off from work. For some women, they can't afford to do that because they risk losing their jobs. Most women who seek abortions are already mothers. That means that if they're trying to leave the state to have an abortion, they have to take their kids with them or find childcare and pay for it in the states where they live. And then it means that in the states that they get to, some of them have requirements such as 24-hour wait periods, 48-hour wait periods, 72-hour wait periods. That means they have to go and come back, or that means that they have to stay and somehow have the resources to be able to stay and afford a hotel in those states that they get to. And if you happen to be a girl who's been raped and suffered from incest, you can only imagine the deep hurdles that she will have to overcome. The state of Mississippi has essentially said that it has no sympathy or empathy towards a 10-year-old who's been raped. In the state of Mississippi, that 10-year-old, unless she can get to another state, must now become a mother at 10 or 11 years old. That's the status of where things stand in the United States.
Dr. Goodman, thanks very much for your time today.
Thank you very much for inviting me to speak with you.